The shortfall in digital spend in India can be ascribed to any number of causes. I think that the biggest single cause is the relative lack of e-commerce development outside of the first phase e-commerce products like travel in India. And it's probably true to say that when travel stops being the biggest category in online advertising, then you will see a rapid acceleration of growth, because e-commerce advertisers are the biggest drivers of digital spending, and maybe 30 to 40% of all of the world's e-commerce advertising, well, the world's online advertising, is through e-commerce. The other factor that I think is extremely important is that in many parts of the world, the online advertising market is driven by search and driven very considerably by the long tail of search. And my sense is that the number of small businesses serving small communities in India that are themselves online and dealing with a population that is online is relatively small in India compared to other parts of the world, particularly the United States. Well, the marketer puts money into digital when one of two things happens. The first thing is that if he's driving sales direct through particular channels, either large organized retail or e-commerce, and in India, organized retail still represents a much smaller proportion of total retail than it does in the developed internet markets of Western Europe and some parts of Southeast Asia, the United States, Mexico, and some other areas. And that's a crucial factor. They also put money into online advertising when other forms of advertising become inefficient. And other forms of advertising become inefficient when the reach they deliver declines. And still, in India, you have a market where 45% of total ad revenue, I believe 40% of total ad revenue, is in newspapers. This is increasingly unusual around the world. And you still have a market where television delivers massive simultaneous reach. In some of the more developed high-spending internet markets, television fragmentation has affected the aggregation of audiences enormously, which has required more online advertising to fill the gap. And the newspaper business in particular has declined precipitously over recent years, principally, but not only, because of its loss of classified advertising revenue to the internet space. So the big pillars of brand communication actually remain more intact in India than they do in some parts of the world, and the distribution infrastructure, notably organized retail, exists to a much lesser degree in India than it does to other parts of the world. And these will be continuous brakes on the growth of internet advertising spend for the near future.